Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to episode 34 of Monorail Memoirs. Today we'll be asking the question, is Magic Kingdom actually the worst park for adults? I have my views on this, and I think some of it changes over time and depending on how old you get and depending on what sort of nostalgia you feel towards it. But before we do that, Lauren, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. I'm just loving your attire.
This isn't the first time that I've done this though, so you should you
I
should
know.
should be square with it now. You'll be fine, I'm sure. Of course, we do have this week's Would You Rather.
Oh
And this
yeah.
week's Would you rather have free food for life in Disney, of course, or free VIP tours for life?
Oh. Oh my
I,
goodness.
I'm going to put a caveat as well. When it comes to the food, you still have to go through the normal booking process. Like you wouldn't just be able to have Victorian Alberts every night. You'd still have to book 60 days out.
Food, I think.
You'd have the free food for life. Why
Yeah.
is that?
Because because of the price of it, I've never really tried a heck of a lot. And I think if it was free, I would just go head first straight in and try everything. Whereas the VIP, the only thing that it's really giving you is frontline access and like a bit of a quicker way to get around, isn't it? And so once you've
Agree.
done that once,
Yeah, agreed. For what it's worth, I think I would probably have the food as well. I only in the last few visits have started eating more in the parks or indeed the resorts themselves, and it does elevate the experience slightly, but it is so expensive. As in, and what you get for the money as well, you do feel aggrieved with having to pay that much. It's not like you're paying a little bit more; you're paying 50% more, some cases 100% more on what you would normally have. So there is a downside to that, but I'm glad we both agree. Would you rather? The answer is food for life. We'll now move into the actual topic of discussion then. So, Magic Kingdom, of course, is, one could argue, probably designed more towards children. I
yeah.
think it features more childlike attractions, it features more childlike wonder with the entertainment and what have you. So, we're going to go through a few different sections here and talk about it. And one of the things I want to talk about first, really, is the crowds. It
Mm.
is the crowdest park. It's actually the busiest theme park in the world. And to demonstrate that, here's one that I made earlier, as they would say. This is the 2024 Walt Disney World crowds data taken from a report last year by the Tampa Bay Times, located in Western Florida. Clearly, Magic Kingdom was the most visited theme park in the world, with just over 17.5 million people attending last year. Epcot comes second on this list with about 13 million. Hollywood Studios is 11, and Animal Kingdom is last with 8.8 million, meaning Animal Kingdom gets half the number of visitors that Magic Kingdom does. And I think this is one of the things to really take into account because Magic Kingdom is just so busy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And sometimes I think that the busyness does take away from the joy of it. You know, if you're constantly weaving through crowds or you're only getting to do a handful of rides that day because the queues are so long, it does take away from it a little bit.
I also think as well, because there are more children and more people in general, obviously, but
Mm.
because there are more children at Magic Kingdom, I would argue, on average than the other parks, the amount of strollers and pushchairs is just biblical.
Yeah, it's unreal. You can't really move for your ankles getting knocked by a stroller or two. It is crazy. And the amount of estate that's taken up with stroller parking in that park is mental.
Oh yeah, especially in Fantasyland. I notice it most
Yeah.
in Fantasyland when you've got the carousel there, you've got a Magic, and you've got the meets and greets, and there's just strollers everywhere. And I think it creates this almost like, it doesn't take away from the magic. That would be unfair
Mm.
because obviously the joy of children doing it is part of the whole bit. I get it, but at the same time, like it makes the walkways a lot tighter. Like
Yeah.
just getting around seems to be harder. That gives this more like chaotic approach to it, and I just think the crowds for me are the thing that I dislike most about Magic Kingdom.
Absolutely. And as a bit of a sidebar, when we're talking about sort of prams and strollers, um, it's really frustrating actually because the cast members move them around.
What?
So you will park your pushchair in a place, this is especially in Epcot next to the seas with Nemo and friends, you will park it somewhere and the cast members will move them around to make more room. And you're thinking, I left it here. Where the heck's it gone?
That's quite funny.
Searching for it.
I think if that's not a good advertisement for an air tag to just stick in the pram, I don't know what is. Just stick an air tag in the side of it or something, just so you can always know where it's at. That's I get why they do it, but that is quite frustrating. So yeah, I do think the crowds for me really do take away from the experience of Magic Kingdom.
Absolutely.
But moving on, I also think as well, a lot of the rides, especially compared to Epcot and Hollywood Studios, are aimed more towards children. And here's how I'm going to give this example. These are the thrill rides that are listed in Magic Kingdom, and there are some good attractions here. For anyone who's watched our episode about a month ago about Draft Day, I shouldn't have picked Tron. For anyone who hasn't seen Draft Day, go and look at it. It was the stupidest decision, and possibly lost me the battle. I think it did. But these are the big thrill attractions, and then even then, you know, I'm not overly convinced. Although I'll be honest with you, I don't know why I put Slinky Dog Dash in there.
Yeah, I was doing that.
Honestly, I've been quite tired. So please ignore Slinky Dog Dash, but the rest of them is still a very valid statement. Yeah. And I do think though that because most of the attractions are aimed towards the young, I think Fantasyland, New Fantasyland especially, I just don't think it's got this, because it's got fewer of the high thrill attractions. I think it naturally takes away from the adult experience.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when you think about the really big rides, they're in Hollywood Studios, mainly, really. There is a couple of big ones in Animal Kingdom, but yeah, I definitely think that the traditional Disney dark ride definitely has its place in Magic Kingdom, especially Fantasyland. And you've got kind of the kiddie coaster, you know, Barnstormer. So yeah, it does feel very much geared towards the kids, which arguably, rightly so, because it's Disney.
Yes, and nothing that I'm saying in this is a criticism of why it's wrong. Yeah. It is merely to say why it's probably the worst park for adults. And that takes us through to the dining options. Dining options are plentiful in Magic Kingdom. However, there's two things I would point out. One, reservations are harder to get there than anywhere else, which does make sort of last minute spur of the moment planning slightly more difficult. If there's just a party of two, you might be okay, but for large groups of adults, can be difficult. But then I also think about when it comes to the alcohol question. So Walt never wanted alcohol to be served in his parks. It was a whole thing. When Club 33 started doing it, which is the private members club inside Disneyland and Magic Kingdom, when they started doing it, there was a little bit of uproar. The reality is that there's really limited options for alcohol, especially when you compare to Epcot and you think drinking around the world is a phenomenon. I just think that a lot of the dining experiences, whether it be a Be Our Guest, whether it be Cinderella's Royal Table, I just don't think that it's aimed in the direction of adults.
No, yeah, you're totally right. And they're all kind of around the character dining aspect. There isn't anything that's really kind of, this is really good food for the good food. You know, this is good food, it's all right, but look at all these characters that we've got to bump up the price. It feels very much that it is leaning on the experience of the characters and the magic and all of that rather than the food. Because, I mean, Epcot instantly springs to mind for really good food options. You know, that place in Japan, remind me what it's called.
Teppanado.
Yes. That's an experience in itself, but it's an experience around the food. It's not an experience of characters and then, oh, here's a buffet, here's some cold corn dogs. You know,
that's a great way of putting it. You're absolutely right, because I didn't even think about that. But yes, there's a disproportionately large number of character dining experiences in Magic Kingdom. Yeah,
and the food quality maybe isn't up there for what you're paying.
Yeah, well, I don't say it absolutely isn't up there. I did 1900 Park Fair, which is in Grand Floridian, and I did dinner there, and that is a character dining experience as well. The buffet is fantastic, but at $80 each pre-tax and tip, it should be pretty good. I will say Boma in Animal Kingdom Lodge, that is top notch. No characters in there though.
Yeah.
I also think for Magic Kingdom as well, the entertainment, and I don't mean the attractions necessarily, but the entertainment is aimed more towards children. I mean, I personally have no interest standing around waiting for the parades to come through. I do think that's more of a children focused thing because they see the characters go past, they wave at them. But I think those shows and entertainment focus more on little ones.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are some Disney adults who will stay around for the parades and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree. If I didn't have children, that is something that would be on my do not need to do at all list. I would rather be in the queue for a ride, or be getting a hot dog from Casey's, or just something like that. I wouldn't wait for an hour before the parade, because sometimes people are sat on the sidewalk, as you call it, the pavement. Before the parade starts. And yeah, for me, that is a very kind of childish aspect of it.
Agreed. And I don't think that it's all bad. And actually, if I think about if I was to approach it by land, I actually think Tomorrowland is probably the most adult friendly of the lot.
I definitely think it's the most nostalgic.
In general, or for me?
For Disney adults, kind of our age.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, Buzz Lightyear and the People Mover, not forgetting, of course, the best ride in all of Walt Disney World, the Carousel of Progress.
Space Mountain.
Yeah, sure, why not? A high nostalgia value for the Carousel of Progress and Tomorrowland in general. But I think if we go to Tomorrowland first, and as you work through the Fantasyland, it just gets progressively less adult friendly.
Yeah,
I can quite easily walk through Fantasyland basically to Liberty Square and then down to Adventureland and Frontierland. I don't really. There's not much in Fantasyland for the likes of me.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I do like it because of the children, but that is obviously what it's geared towards.
Yeah.
So we are the target audience.
I will say there are still some attractions in Magic Kingdom though that are really solid for adults. I think Pirates of the Caribbean is great. Big Thunder Mountain's great. Haunted Mansion, of course, is an absolute hit. And I do think that there is still plenty of things to appeal to adults. But if I was to ask the question, is Magic Kingdom actually the worst park for adults? I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree actually. And when we were deciding this kind of topic for the podcast, I was like, "Oh, this is really controversial." But as I thought more about it, I was thinking, well, yeah, because Epcot's got the food and drink to offer. Hollywood Studios has got the rides. Animal Kingdom is all about conservation, which might kind of go over some children's heads, and and it's about like some of the bigger rides and all that sort of stuff. There's actually very little for children to do in Animal Kingdom. So if you're thinking about to fill your day with a child, Magic Kingdom is definitely the one to go to.
Yeah. And so that brings us to a handy conclusion, not least because I need to get this hat off my head. This string is rubbing on my beard quite significantly. Thank you very much for all attending this week. We'll be out with another episode next week. And until then, please stand clear of the doors. Bye, everybody.
Bye.